Zootopia was released in 2016 and was a great movie, at a time when Disney still used to make those. Now they have just made these complete misfires. It's alright, Bob Iger is being forced out, so we'll see what his successor does. They also made Inside Out 2, which, although not a complete failure, left much to be desired. Check out my Inside Out versus battle if you want to know more. But with those being their recent efforts, could Disney possibly make a worthy sequel to Zootopia? Or do they just not have it in them anymore? Well, the answer might surprise you. How? Let's find out. Let the battle commence. The story for Zootopia is that Judy Hopps joins the police force and is the first bunny to do so. At first, she is relegated to parking duty, but after she takes it upon herself to arrest a thief, she takes on a missing persons case with the help of a sly hustling fox named Nick Wilde. Through this investigation for a single missing person, however, they uncover a larger plot that threatens the very future of Zootopia. And the story for Zootopia 2 takes place 1 week after the first movie. After taking on a case without authorization, Nick and Judy are reprimanded. Meanwhile, it is discovered that a snake is on the loose. We learn that Zootopia is terrified of reptiles and snakes and hasn't seen one in 100 years. Nick and Judy get involved, and in the middle of the action, they realize that things might not be as they seem and go against their orders. They are then framed for attempting to assassinate the chief and find themselves having to prove their innocence, as well as unravel the scandal that goes back to the very creation of Zootopia itself. Now, the story for the first film, I love how simple yet layered it is, and it has a lot of allegories for racism, but it doesn't feel forced or pandering. It's used to flesh out a world and also for a lot of humor. And the mystery itself is very interesting. Inexplicably, some animals have gone missing and have become feral. It's a very fascinating story, and you can see the damage it's going to cause for Zootopia going forward. In the second movie, on the other hand, it's a huge story of corruption to the highest degree. And although it's a Disney movie, so they aren't going to go so deep into every facet of what that entails, they go quite in depth with just how big of a scandal this is. And it's very reflective of true life events that have happened in the past and are still happening to this day. And I really appreciated that the movie went this direction with the story. This is by no means a lazy sequel. Where they did take the easy way out was setting the story only 1 week after the first film. I mean, come on, the first Zootopia came out 9 years ago. It would have been nice to have some kind of a time jump to show that these characters have grown and gone up in the ranks, but no, Disney decided to pull an Incredibles 2. And to make things worse, the characters are unfortunately reprimanded right after their first mission, which is not what any of us wanted to see. Also, this was completely unnecessary, because Nick and Judy get framed for a crime they didn't commit and get reprimanded anyway, so they should have just had them be at the top of their game, maybe even get promoted, and then they get framed. That would have made much more sense and wouldn't have resorted to the cliche of putting them back at square one again 1 week after their big win, because whether they had their jobs or not, they would have ended up in the same predicament once they got framed. So although the story in Zootopia 2 takes some bold swings, it takes some generic ones as well. And the mysteries in both movies, the evidence that Judy is able to get from a single picture is too convenient. And it was already convenient in the first film, but it was super convenient in the second film. So as intriguing as the mystery in these movies are, the steps they take to solving it is not very smart, even by kid movie standards. Now, as for the pacing of the two movies, whereas the pacing in the first film was perfect from beginning to end, the pacing of the second movie really slows down in the middle, and it just loses that energy and engagement that the first film was able to maintain throughout its runtime. Now, it picks up again in the third act, but that doesn't make up for the slower second act. So from a pacing perspective, I much prefer the first film, but from a story perspective, I think it was much more high stakes and engrossing in the second film. It was dark, tragic, it reflected a lot of our own history and present, and that made the story all the more timely and relevant, and it didn't feel like the movie was playing it safe. And I thought the ending really stuck the landing. The first movie's ending, however, that's where the movie really fell off for me. We'll talk more about that in the villain segment, but that ending was so anticlimactic, and I felt it made the movie end with a whimper rather than a high. Whereas Zootopia 2 actually did right by its ending, and I felt much more satisfied when it was over. Sure, it has a slower second act, but I would rather have a weaker second act than a weak ending. So yeah, who would have seen this coming? The movie with a superior story is Zootopia 2. Now, Zootopia 2 does something that has typically not been well received from audiences, but that didn't stop Disney from doing it anyway. We find that our characters have only been on the job for a week, and then they become screw-ups. They're going rogue and doing missions without authority, and it reflects badly on the chief, who reluctantly has to punish them, and they're treated like they're at the beginning of their careers again. So the characters have a very rough start. After that, though, they do get much better. In particular, once Nick and Judy get going with their main mission of the movie, all the character traits you have come to love return. They still have great chemistry with each other, there are some funny jokes, and they tease the two potentially being a couple for fans out there. And the biggest compliment I can give is that both the movie and the characters feel legit. They don't feel off like Moana 2, where there was something different about them, as if they were from a completely different creative team. I also felt the same way about Inside Out 2 to an extent, but not here. Everyone feels consistent with the first movie, and that's great. Now, in the first Zootopia, Judy is assigned to parking duty, and she is first introduced to Nick Wilde in the middle of one of his hustles. And the ice cream hustle was amazing. It was hilarious the first time, and it's still funny all these viewings later. And humor like this is something that the whole family can enjoy. But then, there are adult jokes that only the grown-ups will get. The tax evasion joke? I didn't get this as a kid, but it got a huge laugh out of me now, and is my favorite joke of the movie.
You kiss me tomorrow, I'll bite your face off.
Okay, second favorite.
Are your customers aware they're getting snot and mucus with their cookies and cream?
Okay, third. Yeah, there are many great jokes in this movie.
Be careful now, it won't just be your dreams getting crushed.
Hey.
Okay, fourth. So the humor from the characters in the first movie is great, and there are so many memorable ones. In the second movie, however, a lot of the jokes did not work for me. There was a joke he made about her ears, but that was the only really funny one to me. The humor really feels underwritten, and there are not nearly enough jokes for the adults. And although there is a lot of humor in the film, it just wasn't funny to me. A lot of it was quite juvenile, although the film did have a lot of references to other Disney movies, and those ranged from amusing to kind of funny. There was a funny Ratatouille reference, and I recognized it before they even did the big rat reveal. There was even a Lady and the Tramp reference in here. There was a Frozen reference with the way one character knocks on a door. There was even a Pulp Fiction reference, and even a very strong reference to The Shining. They weren't allowed to do a Silence of the Lambs reference, however, because that would have gone over their audience's head. Yeah, I don't get it either. Now, Nick and Judy make a great team in both movies, but I will say that in the first film, there is more variety to their teamwork. Before they truly work as a team, they start off hostile towards each other, with Judy blackmailing him to help her or she will arrest him for tax fraud. And not only does that give them more variety, but it gives their relationship and eventual friendship a definitive development from beginning to end. In the second movie, they have development, but not too much. Their development mainly consists of how they both appreciate each other, and that's kinda tame. That sounds more like a lesson they would learn in a 6-minute episode of Zootopia Plus, but not in a sequel that you wait 9 years for. That being said, throughout the film, they play off each other incredibly well, and that's a lot of fun to see. There were some dumb moments from the characters though. Nick gets captured by the bad guys at one point, and he could have easily gotten out of that situation if he wanted to, but didn't because the movie just wanted him to get captured in this scene. So that was too easy and kinda dumb. And the first movie never had scenes that were this much of a setup. And it didn't lazily put them at square one again like the second film did. So I enjoyed their relationship much more in the first film, and I liked it better when Nick and Judy were a solo team, whereas in the second film, they have other characters joining them on their journey. Plus, I thought the writing for them was much better in the first film, especially in regards to both of their backstories. So the movie that I think did a superior job with Nick and Judy is Zootopia 1. And then we have the side characters in both films, and whereas in the first movie they are more in the background, in the second movie they are much more involved. In particular, Nibbles and Gary the Snake. And it's actually pretty cool to see the side characters pulling their weight throughout the film. And most of them are good characters, although Nibbles did get awfully close to getting on my nerves sometimes.
Just talk to me, dude!
No. There was a bunch of lazy jokes they did with her. There was a Hey Bub joke, which was such a cheap laugh. The Zed Bros were lame and had a terrible running joke. Idris Elba as the chief takes a huge step back in the film, and that's because the movie would be over if he was in it, because he would prove Nick and Judy's innocence immediately. So they have him hospitalized over a venomous snake bite. Everyone else wakes up with the antidote, but the chief takes the entire movie, and even then, he's still in the hospital. So the writing is not as sharp or smart here. They needed him out of the way, and that's exactly what they did. And Gary narrator Snake is voiced by Ke Huy Quan, and just knowing that, he is exactly the kind of squirmy and shy character you think he is going to be. And he's surprisingly not in the movie all that much, which is bizarre considering that the story revolves around him. And he almost screwed everything up for his people by vouching for someone who turned out to be the bad guy. So he's not very smart. Overall, I prefer the side characters in the first movie. They had just the right amount of screen time, made a very strong impression, and they also bring certain characters back, such as Judy's childhood bully who attacked her when she was little. And the way they tied this up was really nice and genuine, and little touches like these were just lacking in the second movie. In the first film, the character writing was stronger, the jokes were funnier, and they had just the right amount of screen time. And in Zootopia 2, despite having more involvement and throwing in some new characters, in the grand scheme of things, you can take them or leave them. And the more distance you have from the movie, the more forgettable they become. So the movie with superior side characters is Zootopia 1. Alright, the segment you've all been waiting for. Now for all the praise the first Zootopia gets, the one thing that people unanimously dog on is the twist villain. Now back when this movie came out, it didn't bother me. I just went with it, and I didn't quite understand what all the hate was about. So when I watched the movie again in preparation for this Versus video, I trusted that my opinion would remain the same as it was all those years ago. Time is a cheap bitch, isn't she? I don't know how this could have happened, but upon rewatch, I really hated this twist. It's just so anticlimactic, and minutes after she is revealed to be the villain, she's exposed, and it's all over. The hustle is admittedly a fun gag here, but for this to be the movie's climax, it just feels so underwhelming. And then the movie wraps up and it just feels so rushed and thrown together, almost as if they didn't know how to end it. And for all the things this movie does right, this was the worst thing it did. Now thankfully, the villain in the second movie is not a mystery villain. Well, okay, that's not entirely true. There is a twist villain, and I predicted it the very second he appeared on screen, but the main villains are revealed very early on, so that was a relief. And those villains are the Linksley family, and their story consists of the rich stealing land and expelling its inhabitants so they can take the land for themselves, all the whilst creating a false narrative to demonize the original inhabitants and use it as a justification for expelling and murdering them. But the reptiles
Are the real enemy.
Yeah, you probably will have noticed that this is very relevant to what's going on today, and the more the movie went on, the stronger and stronger the comparisons became. So I really liked what they did with the villains here, and they're pretty darn ruthless too. Even the Godfather rodent says they're killers and have no honor, and I'm glad that this commentary is in the movie. But as strong as the social commentary is with this corrupt family, they are by no means gonna go down as some of the all-time great Disney villains. Not even close. As far as their utilization in the story goes, they were very predictable bad guys, and you could more or less peg everything they were gonna do throughout this movie. So they were decent, but by no means great. We also have Wind Dancer, voiced by Patrick Warburton, and he is...
The mayor.
Yeah, the mayor.
Oh shit, it is. Look at that.
And that character was also pretty generic, and I just found it surprising to see how scared he was of the Linksley family, only for them to be terrified of him in a split second. That being said, I still enjoyed him. The best part about him is his design. I don't know why, but it just makes me laugh how wimpy and effeminate he appears, despite having such a deep and commanding voice. And as for the twist villain, poor Bert here is known as a failure to his family, so the whole time he was posing as a good guy repulsed by his family's ways, when in actuality he is trying to find the long-lost document that his family have been searching for so he can give it to his father and wipe out all proof of the reptiles' history with Zootopia. So even though the twist villain has become a very tired trope with Disney movies, I thought this one actually worked and had merit behind it. And by doing this, it further succeeded at giving the movie a true story of corruption at the very core of Zootopia. So although it wasn't a high bar to beat, the movie with the far superior villains is Zootopia 2. So overall, we all love the first Zootopia, there's no surprise there, but I was surprised to see how well the second movie fared against it. It has a really good story, it stays true to the characters of Nick and Judy, and doesn't succumb to inaccurate and lackluster character writing like Disney's previous sequels have, and it even has far superior villains, even though, as I said, the bar wasn't all that high to begin with. However, the second movie felt like it was missing something. It's a good sequel, but it just isn't a great sequel. It's no Toy Story 2 or Puss in Boots 2, To me, this movie is kind of on a similar level to The Incredibles 2. A second installment that is really fun the first time you watch it, becomes less fun the second time, and then you just don't feel like revisiting it anymore, and it just sort of lives in the shadow of the first movie. The first Zootopia had so much imagination and a sense of wonder with its visuals and world building, and although the second movie has plenty of imagination as well, it just isn't as strong as the first film where it all felt new and exciting. Now, the first movie wasn't perfect either. It's fun, it's hilarious, it's got some good tension, memorable characters, and an intriguing mystery, but it has a terrible twist villain, some jokes that don't work, and a climax that just abruptly ends, and then the movie wraps itself up like it's rushing to get to the credits. I did a watch party of Zootopia on my Discord server recently, and even when I was watching it with you guys, the rushed ending really prevented this movie from getting a higher score from me. If they just found a way to end this movie on a high, then it would have been great. As is, that ending made the movie fall short of true greatness for me. It's time for the scores. Zootopia 1 gets an 8 out of 10, and Zootopia 2 gets a 7. I am genuinely surprised that the second movie is even in the same vicinity with its score as the first film. Given Disney's terrible track record with their animated movies lately, I thought this would succumb to many of the same problems, but thankfully, they made a good movie here. Not a great one, but a good one, and I will happily take this over the slop they have been giving us the last few years. Although, you can definitely tell that they didn't give this movie much time to be made, because I thought the animation for Zootopia 2 was disappointing. Don't get me wrong, it still looks good, but after 9 years, there is little to no improvement over the first film's animation, and dare I say it, it doesn't feel like it's a cinema movie. You could just as easily watch this at home and get the same impact. Unlike the first film, this is not a must-see in theaters. That didn't stop everyone from going, especially China. At the end of the day, Disney made a good sequel here. Does this mean they are back? Yeah, no. But they are definitely on the right track. And unless they're careful, it's just a matter of time before they veer off again. Let's hope that doesn't happen. Well, that didn't take long, did it?
Sensei? I think somebody just Death Quan clogged the toilet.
So tell me, what did you think of Zootopia 2? Were you surprised that I liked it? And do you think it is good enough to put Disney back on track? Be sure to let me know. If you like this video, then please give it a thumbs up, hit that hype button, and please hit the subscribe button as well and the bell right next to it. And consider supporting me over on Patreon. There are tons of exciting perks, including access to my private Discord server. And a huge thanks to those of you who have joined my Patreon already. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see all of you very soon. Take care.